This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.
Welcome to special episode 14 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your special co-host Coleton.
I'm Pat.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Eddie.
And we invite you to come along as we go in search of the world's monsters, myths, and mysteries on Paranormal Dads.
Hello, everybody. We are in Hastings, Nebraska.
At the hotel room.
In the hotel.
Yeah.
Recording fresh off of the second annual Nebraska Bigfoot Conference.
Boy, we heard a lot of speakers today. A lot of slideshows, a lot of really cool stories. But we figured we better record, even though our brain is kind of mush from absorbing all this information. We figured we better record while it's still fresh on our mind.
Yeah.
We also saw some very big names in the Bigfoot community.
My goodness.
Cliff Barackman,
Yep,
from
Barackman,
Finding
yep.
Bigfoot.
And then Bob
Gimlin. Oh my gosh.
I mean, this is the godfather, essentially, right? Like
Bob Gimlin, if you were to look up famous Bigfoot photo, the photo that comes up, the famous one shot in 1967 in Willow Creek, California, the one that's going to pop up, black and white image of a Sasquatch walking down a dry creek bed, was shot by, the footage was shot by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. Roger Patterson passed away. Bob Gimlin came in, and it doesn't sound like he travels much anymore, but he came in especially for this conference, and boy, I mean, it was like Elvis walking into the building. This guy is a rock star in the cryptozoological field, and he's kind of this cute older cowboy, 87 years old?
86, I think.
86,
Yeah.
I think initially.
I think that's what he said anyway.
Yeah.
And we also have a very special co-host today.
Hello.
This is my son Coleton joining us on this excursion, and he didn't have school for a few days, so he decided to come along and hang out with us. So it's been a good day all around.
It's been a lot of fun.
Hence the dad part of Paranormal Dad.
Yeah.
You have children, everybody.
Yeah.
Proven now.
What'd you think today, Colton? Was it a great time?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like you said, there are a lot of very interesting stories. There were some that are like pretty crazy and like how does that happen? But yeah, there are a lot that like made logical, like scientific sense. Like, yeah, that's possible. So, yeah.
And also, there were all kinds of different vendors selling. If you're in the market for anything Bigfoot, you could have found it at this place. They had bumper stickers. They had wall hangings. They had lunch boxes, which Eddie was able to acquire.
I'm the proud owner of a Bigfoot lunchbox.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any other kind of owner of a Bigfoot lunchbox?
So you can put your beef Wellington inside of there.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that
later. Yeah, it's like
They
a
had
farmer's
everything.
market for.
It's like the guy can't order beef Wellington anymore.
They had like a 7-foot tall silhouette of
Yeah.
Bigfoot. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing weighed like a good 50 pounds. We were kind of curious to check the price.
It was like
No.
$220,
Yeah,
wasn't
bring
it?
your wallet. But I mean, it was a big hunkin', souvenir.
Oh, it's substantial.
Miniature ones too.
No, totally. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff at a lot of price points. I mean, if you did want to walk, if you had a budget in mind, you could definitely stick to it. But if you wanted to drop some cash, you could do that too.
Yeah,
For sure.
which we definitely did.
But yeah, I kind of wanted to get Colton's perspective real quick. So there's other kids right now who are like, sitting at home playing video games, or they're watching Netflix, and you are on a paranormal convention road trip with your dad and his podcast buddies. What is that like?
I mean, that's what you do when you grow up with an awesome dad.
Can I have an allowance
I'm
increase,
touched, yeah.
Dad?
An allowance.
Here's that $20
Like,
you've
by
been
the
trying
way.
to get from me.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Andy had called me Beef Wellington, and I feel like I need to respond to this.
It's his new nickname.
Because, we're going to give you some of our adventures, some of the things that we encountered getting into this town, to hunker down and do the things that we needed to do. So we get into town, and we get into our hotels, and we decide, let's go get something to eat. And, for people who don't know what I do for a day job, a good chunk of my time in the summer, I do some traveling for work. And I get to the point where hitting those chain restaurants just becomes kind of monotonous. So I like trying whatever's local. And so I asked the hotel staff what would be a good place to go. They made a recommendation, which I'll recommend the place. It's called the Odyssey.
It was good.
They even showed us a menu.
Yeah, they gave us a menu. I thought it was
kind
of strange. I saw some pretty fancy things on there, fancy ingredients. I didn't know what they were.
Sure.
And I didn't see nachos and things like that.
No, there were not nachos.
So not necessarily
there were
a red flag.
a long list of burgers though, and we're thinking, oh, that'll work.
And there was like a bacon, egg, lettuce, tomato sandwich on the lunch menu, which is what she gave us.
I knew they were a slightly fancier place, but on the lunch thing there was a charcuterie board, and there was a charcuterie.
Ratatouille.
But we decided to give it a whirl. And so we did, and we go, and it's one of those great, and if anybody, I'm sure everybody out there has had this experience, where you walk into a place and you're in a town you don't live or whatever, and you don't really know, you're just kind of going on a whim, and we walk into this place, and within a few minutes, or within a few seconds...
Yes.
It's like, we're not supposed to be here.
Not even not supposed to be here, but it wasn't what we had in mind.
Right.
Yeah.
We are greeted, gentlemen, where's your reservation?
And we were like,
oh no.
It's like,
so anyway, the point is, we
need one?
decided we're already here, let's experience it, and it was a wonderful meal.
Very fancy.
It was
fancy.
delicious.
But it just wasn't what we had pictured in our brain being what we were going to have. The point is, on the menu, one of the items was beef Wellington, and I was even like, well, I've never had beef Wellington before. I did not order it. I got chicken fried steak. Hello.
But it was a fancy chicken fried steak.
It was like at New York.
It was like a New York strip.
Oh,
it wasn't, chopped or anything. It was
delicious.
Yeah.
I could just picture this alter ego of Eddie that had a top hat and a cane and a monocle and some mustache wax and, man, beef Wellington, see?
I say this beef Wellington is the best I've had in Nebraska.
Gordon Ramsay has nothing on the Odyssey.
Gordon Ramsay is a hack. He's a fool.
Eddie's advice to us all was just roll with it, guys. Just play it like you're Tony Stark and you belong here.
That's what I said.
And that's what we did. We owned it, and we had a good time.
What'd you say? It's not what you wear into a fancy restaurant. It's how you carry yourself.
It's how you
That's
own
what
it.
I said.
Yeah.
That's some good life advice.
And then we had Taco Bell this afternoon to balance it out.
Oh yeah, and the funny thing about that is that when we walked in, Eddie was like, yes, can I please have beef Wellington? Like, we were talking about it in the car. It was like, Eddie, you should totally ask for beef Wellington. And he did it, and it was the funniest thing ever.
Poor kid. He must have been about 18 years old. He had never heard of it.
Yeah.
And he thought you were serious.
we have that, sir.
I threatened to go back and make it myself. I can do it. Just gonna be back in the kitchen.
I'm new here. I don't know. Maybe we have it. I don't know.
This guy wants beef Wellington. Who's Mr. Wellington? It was the best.
It was fun.
But anyway,
At least we didn't ask for Sasquatch meat or anything like
right?
that.
That they would have known. They're
Yeah.
like, we got some in the back.
We got the crazies here.
Well, not everyone is hip to the Bigfoot scene. Actually, I had to go up to the front desk a few minutes ago here at the hotel and, get something cleared up. And there was 3 young guys at the front desk checking in and getting a room for the night. And the gal at the front desk was kind of flustered. She said, sorry, guys, there's not many rooms available. We have the Bigfoot Conference in town. The look on their faces were priceless. They looked at each other like,
Yeah.
Bigfoot? What? I've never seen a Bigfoot around here. What are you talking
I
about?
feel like it's weird that we have to, justify that to people.
Yeah.
Like there's a convention for everything.
For everything.
Yeah.
It's
Probably a
not-
Beef Wellington convention somewhere.
I'm going to go find one right now.
Honestly.
Put that in the link of the show notes. The Beef Wellington convention. I'd be remiss before we dove into the event, if I didn't talk about how we got to stand in front of, and please check our Facebook page and Twitter, we got to stand in front of, we found Bigfoot.
We did find him.
Yeah.
He's pretty tall.
Pretty tall. He's got big tires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's bluer than I thought he would be.
Yeah, he has more decals on him
Yeah.
than I pictured.
I think he's sponsored by Firestone now, too.
And he would wreck my garage if I tried to pull him in.
Any Bigfoot would be bad in a garage, especially this one. But yeah, it's the monster truck from the 80s. But they had probably one of the original ones you pointed out, Pat, because it was a very old body style.
Yeah. It was at the local Ford dealership. They had him parked out front, so we made the little trip down the highway just to check him out. Got our picture taken in front of Bigfoot, right next to the Taco Bell, by the way.
Yeah,
so
I know, right?
It was very convenient.
Does it get more American than that?
That thing was massive. It was, 15 feet tall, maybe? Somewhere in that
At
ballpark?
least.
At least.
It's a one-story house. I mean, it's one story.
Yeah.
No, taller than one story.
Taller than one story.
One and a
Yeah.
half stories, maybe?
It was a crazy looking truck, and Eddie later on looked up a video on YouTube
Oh,
that
man.
looked like a trailer for a movie or something,
Yeah,
a Bigfoot
yeah.
movie from the 80s.
Exactly.
He was stuck in traffic, and he just decides to just take off and drive over all these cars and just crush all the cars
Yeah,
in
you
the
just
traffic.
like
So
like
good.
it
So-
looks like he's like raising up on a platform. These big wheels puff out, and he just
So good.
But,
destroys everything.
Bigfoot the truck, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Bigfoot, the truck, smells like squatch.
But the convention was great too. Earlier in the day, there were various presenters with different PowerPoint presentations, and some were talking about the what would you call it, the flora?
The Flora, definitely.
Yeah.
Trees,
Yeah.
trees that might provide food for Bigfoot.
Food and
Very
medicinal
scenic.
stuff. And
Berries. There was another presenter that kind of talked about personal stories of encounters with Sasquatch leaving her family gifts. There was even stories involving guys who claimed that during a camping outing he couldn't find any firewood, and suddenly they go on the other side of the truck and there's a gigantic log propped up right against the truck that was that wasn't there a few minutes earlier.
Right.
That was so heavy he could barely even carry it back to the fire and put it on there.
Yeah.
But he was glad. I mean, if it was a gift from Sasquatch that were observing their situation, it was a very nice gift because apparently it was a rainy day. He couldn't get the fire started, and they had 2 special needs kids out there with them at the campground that were getting cold.
Yeah.
So they think that perhaps it was a moment of empathy from the Bigfoots that were seeing them from afar, and they gave them a big dry log. It was I mean, in as outlandish as that might sound, I think oftentimes information is only as credible as the person it's coming from, and the person telling that story seemed very sincere, very genuine. And a lot of the people today, I would say, are not prone to making things up. I, for one, believed the stories they shared.
That was a gentleman from Colorado, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He runs, there's a special group in Colorado, kind of like the BFRO, if you're familiar with that Bigfoot group. But they specialize just in sightings and investigate sightings in and around the state of Colorado. And I believe it's
Sir.
SIR, S-I-R.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Google SIR and check that out, SIR Bigfoot and Colorado. And they've got some interesting pictures on their website. I think they might even have some sound recordings and things like that you can check out.
Yeah, what I liked about this too, like what you were kind of touching on, Andy and Pat, was that there was a nice balance of personal experience stories, but also like some science, some evidence-based stuff as well. Particularly she wasn't an ecologist. I keep getting it. Was she a botanist?
I believe she was a botanist of some kind, yeah.
Going into the different types of plants that would support any type of animal that would need the certain types of things, and then heavily leaning it towards Sasquatch. And then we did get into Cliff Barackman's presentation, where he had a lot of evidence-based things.
And for those who might not know, he's one of the 4 main hosts of the Animal Planet show Finding Bigfoot, and which has been going on for 100+ episodes. So he's been literally
really good show.
all over the country, all over the world in search of these creatures, and he had a lot of good information to share. A lot of his presentation initially centered around the hand shape and handprints that they've gotten of Bigfoot, which I thought was a really interesting take.
And he shared just a number of really cool-looking casts that have been made from handprints, also photos taken of handprints, and even stories about what the Finding Bigfoot crew went through trying to videotape some of these handprints. There was one story where they were kind of cleaning the door around the handprint. It's television. They want to make it look nice. Then they realized that the handprint was actually on the inside of a glass door. So this creature actually had opened up the door to this house, and had his hand on the inside of the house.
Right.
That'd be pretty unnerving if that was your house.
By the pictures, that was not a human hand size. That was what did they say? 14 inches?
It was massive.
It was huge.
It was like twice the size of a man's hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bigger than a foot.
Yeah.
Of a person. When they had the hand comparison, and this was probably a different story, but it was the one where there was a handprint on the outside of someone's house, and the police had traced it. Just seeing the scale difference was just frightening. It was like a baby hand inside of an adult human hand.
They actually used a ladder just to find it on the house, and it was on part of the roof. Actually, what was it? It was at least 9 feet.
I think it was 8.5 feet up there, and apparently the guy, it was 2:30 a.m. or something like that.
2:30
and he was working in his office, and then he hears just this big boom outside. And the next morning, he goes and investigates it, and he finds that huge handprint up there.
Yeah,
you can definitely see, because Cliff kind of touched on this too with the whole post-traumatic stress, how some people, when they witness a Sasquatch sighting, how they experience post-traumatic stress symptoms. I mean, when you see something that is so tall that it can actually put its hand on the roof of your house, I mean, that just makes me weak in the knees just kind of thinking about that.
It's kind of like the intro to the show, Finding Bigfoot. It's impossibly large, It's just, I can't, it's hard to wrap your brain around how huge these creatures would be.
And everyone had their own account and their own story. Towards the end of the night, Cliff actually opened it up to what they call a town hall meeting, which was basically just a chance for attendees at the conference to share their own personal accounts. One of my favorites was this older gentleman in his 60s or 70s, long white beard, the kind of guy who looks like he'd have some cool stories, and he shared a doozy. And he shared it in such a down-to-earth, straightforward way that it was almost impossible not to believe him. We had some audio recording of him sharing that story. It was kind of hard to hear, so we figured we'd just kind of retell it and summarize in our own words what he said tonight.
The part that got me, and I think we talked about this briefly after the town hall meeting with Cliff, was that this gentleman, which I forget his name, I don't think he ever gave his name.
I don't think he did either.
I don't think Cliff asked for names, actually.
No, he didn't.
So no names were given. But we're relaying this story 100% the best that we remember. This was what got me particularly was how earnest this guy was, and he wasn't so much trying to convince the audience. He was just sharing these details. But the funny part about it was, the details seemed to come so easily that it's one of those things that you would think, no matter how long you lived, this would just live in your memory.
And he was a younger guy. Were they teenagers at the time?
He said early 20s, late teens, or young. Yeah. So the premise was it was calving season, and Cliff didn't catch that. He thought he said cabin season. Calving season.
You go out and hunt a cabin?
You shoot houses here in Nebraska?
Is that what you crazy Nebraskan boys do?
Cows were having babies.
Cows were having babies.
Baby calves.
And so what happens, obviously, is that the mother cows are surrounded by their babies. And what they observed, it was at night with friends. They were driving by, and they saw that the babies were being surrounded by the mothers. The mothers were corralling the babies and keeping them safe. And so this gentleman's observation to the crowd was, this is a sign that there's a predator around. We thought there may have been coyotes around. So they got out to try to, see what was going on, to try to secure their, freshly born calves. And so he gets into the pen and starts kind of adjusting the fence, fixing the gate. The gate was askew. Is that what you guys gathered from that?
Like that?
The gate was ajar, so he's in there fixing the gate. So far, the story is very kind of mundane. I mean, there's not a lot.
It's like,
right.
We don't know what's going to happen.
And then his friends observe the silhouette of a very tall figure off to the side, and based on what they thought, it may have been a horse. Is that what they thought initially?
He wasn't sure because the shape was off. He could see some eyes, but they couldn't tell what it was.
Yeah. And go ahead, Pat.
And then he said, get in the truck.
Yeah, his friend was like, get in the truck.
And he didn't know why. He's like, why? What do you see? He's
Yeah.
like, get in the truck.
Yeah.
And this creature is coming right for them.
Well, and they said that there was this vertical pipe that was standing on end that was over 6 feet tall. An irrigation pipe, those corrugated metal pipes. And this thing was kind of hiding or half hiding behind it, but it was sticking, like the pipe stopped at its sternum, and its body was well above this pipe.
Yeah, and the pipe was like 6 feet tall.
6 feet, over 6 feet
so
tall.
this thing
They
is
said
like
6 feet.
easily 8 feet, 9 feet.
8 plus.
Yeah.
And then they had shown a light on it, and they started on the ground, thinking that they would be able to shine it on the ground, seeing what it was, but weren't able to get a clear visual. So then pointed the light up, got it in this thing's face, to which then he said that he saw what looked like a reflection in the creature's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
To which then it put up a long
an arm.
humanoid arm
To shield his eyes from the light.
to block its eyes from the light.
And at this point, he said his buddy in the car pulled out a gun, pointed it at the creature, and
And he
said,
was in the car at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, "Should I shoot?"
Yeah. And he said yes at first.
At first, he said yes.
And he said,
And his other buddy was like, "Don't do it."
I think it. Wait, were there 3 people?
There's 3 kids in the car.
Oh, I thought it was just him and his buddy.
it was
I missed that.
him and 2 friends.
Okay.
One was driving, one was in the back seat or whatever, and the other one, and they were in some sort of Dodge car because that was
it
the
was
big
like a
thing.
station
I
wagon.
think
Station
they said that's
wagon.
what it was, like a station
And then-
wagon.
and then-
like 2-wheel drive.
Yeah, one pulled a gun, like a rifle, and the other one did not. And asked, "Should I shoot?" He, being the man who tells the story, said yes. The other friend, the third friend, was no, don't. We don't know what that is,
And they did not.
and they did not shoot.
Which is good.
Right.
You know,
right.
you should never shoot a gun at
And then
anything you don't know.
you don't know what it is.
Could just be a
And
very
then
tall human.
Pat, I'll let you put a frosting on this one because the thing took off, and then yeah,
Well, you know, the creature took off, and he said, you know, I remember this as clear as day, and this is something I will never forget. I know what I saw, which is something you hear so many times from these people. He says, I don't care what anybody says to me. I know what I saw,
yeah.
and it was a Bigfoot.
Well,
And there was a fence. He said four
yeah.
foot
Oh, yeah,
fence
the barbed
maybe.
wire fence.
So the creature starts running, and the way that he put it, the creature leaped over this it was a 4 or 5 foot fence, leaped over it like an Olympic sprinter going over a hurdle.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing.
Yeah.
You're talking world-class athleticism, and this thing just was gone off into the night.
And he described it running as a person with arms swinging, just running.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, they did try to follow it through a series of gates. They couldn't get the car through fast enough. Then it went into some rocky terrain, and he said, if we follow that thing in there and this car gets stuck, we're going to have to walk back out. And they were not prepared to do that.
No.
So,
Plus, I mean, and this is good advice for anything. If something that you don't know is running away from you, don't maybe go after it.
Because then you're just gonna scare it, and then maybe it might get like angry at you
Exactly.
and like try to. You don't know like what that thing can do.
Right.
So
Yeah. Same thing for like stray dogs and stuff. Don't go chasing after it.
don't pet my dog if I don't say
But
so.
it's such a sobering story because when the guy was done, there was a palatable silence in the
right.
room.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
people
crazy.
were on the edge of their seat.
Yeah.
He definitely
I
had
was.
everybody's attention with that one.
Yeah.
But there were a number of interesting stories, but it was kind of cool at the end. We finished maybe 20 minutes early, so Cliff kind of opened it up to questions about the Finding Bigfoot program, and says, okay, what kind of questions do you have about the show? Let's talk about the show. And
I believe we're sharing some of those, right? Is that the idea?
we do have some recordings of that conversation, which we'll share in the episode.
Yeah. With Cliff's permission, I asked him afterwards, and he said, "Yeah, feel free to share some of the audio of me speaking tonight."
As long as it's like nothing personal.
Right.
So.
But you know, speaking of Cliff, though, couldn't have been a nicer guy. He
Oh.
was just a great
Oh my
guy.
gosh. He's so
It
open.
was just a pleasure to meet him and talk with him, and you know, he was very open to us. I think we walked up to him 2 or 3 times
I
today.
think 3 times
And-
solid.
and
yeah.
he was always very welcoming and willing to talk.
Well, Coleton wowed him with his sweet Rubik's cube skills there. So
Yeah.
that was our
He
opening.
He saw my sweatshirt, yeah, and then he was like, "My wife does Rubik's cubes."
He
Yeah.
actually
So-
took a video of Coleton solving a Rubik's cube. Coleton can do it,
Yeah.
pretty quickly. And later on, he showed us his wife texted him back, and she said, "He's so fast. I'm so old and slow."
Yeah, that was good.
That was fun.
They had great merchandise on every table too. At Cliff's particular booth, he was selling replicas of authentic casts of Bigfoot feet out in the field, and these things were heavy. I couldn't help myself. I had to splurge a little bit, and I got one. And this thing's massive. I mean, it has some weight to it.
Yeah,
it's like if you dropped it, it would just completely shatter.
Oh yeah, and it's like 5 or 10 pounds. I was joking.
Yeah.
You could probably julienne a carrot with that, or chop up your dinner, because on the edges it's super sharp.
It's sharp.
Yeah.
At this point,
Beef
with it being
Wellington, anybody?
make beef Wellington with that.
I mean, it could be a paperweight, a doorstop, a Ginsu knife, or you could really do some damage. Used as a nightstick if you needed to.
Like that's like the ultimate rock for throwing into your neighbor's house.
I got to get a concealed to carry permit for that thing, man.
Sir, do you have a license to carry that?
Do you have a license for that Bigfoot foot?
But the cool thing is, Cliff also signed it for you on the back.
He signed it, and also Bob
And
Gimlin.
so did Bob Gimlin.
Bob Gimlin signed it as well. Oh man, that guy. And the thing about Bob Gimlin, 86, 87 years old. I mean, he was just eating it up, and you would think that somebody who's been in the limelight at the epicenter of the cryptozoological world for so many years, that he'd be a little burnt out or tired of this all. Every person who came up and wanted a picture with him, and there was a long line.
There was.
He more than obliged. He was joking, telling jokes, hugging people. Signing babies, blowing kisses. Like he was loving it, and it was really refreshing to see that.
He could knock me out in one punch. By the way, he looks that tough.
His handshake.
Yeah,
I mean,
when he shook my
hurt.
hand, it was like squeezing a bag of chips. It was like crunch. I'm like, Bob Gimlin, you're strong.
Hey, buddy.
Sasquatch strength.
I feel your strength. Like he was a tough dude and such a sweet, approachable guy.
Nice guy.
And I just liked his vibe. Just a solid dude. Yeah.
So, well, let's go into some of that discussion we had with Cliff Barackman of Finding Bigfoot. He went on to tell us a little bit about what went on behind the scenes on the TV show, and we'll come back shortly after that.
Sounds good.
Because I look back, and first of all, we did about 100 episodes, and my memory's a big mushy mess of all of them. People ask me, remember when you went to this particular town and so-and-so? And I go, no, I remember being in the state. But it's a big mushy mess. The Australia one was amazing. Yeah, I guess it would probably have to be one of the international ones because those do stand out so strongly. And Australia was phenomenal because I interacted with the Yowie, with the clapping and stuff like that I was doing. Australia is also one of the very few places that I've been that I would love to go back to. Don't be offended, Nebraska. But I do a lot of traveling, and I met wonderful people everywhere I've gone. But out of those 100 episodes, I look back if I could go back anywhere, where would that be? And then Australia. It's kind of way up there. Because the Bigfoots are right outside of town, and even the Yowie researchers don't realize how accessible they are. They're right there. And have you ever been to Southern California, like San Diego or somewhere like that? It would be lovely except all the people, right? That's what Australia's like. San Diego with 1/4 the number of people. Beach culture, 70-degree ocean water, lovely day every day, and Bigfoots are about 30 minutes that way. It's awesome. Yeah. But looking back, so many things on the show. Crash landing in a hot air balloon. How can I forget that? How can I even put that in order? So when you ask, what's your favorite? I have to say, I am not good at superlatives. To say something is my favorite makes me feel like all the other ones aren't as good. And I just don't think like that. Because whether it's crash landing in a balloon, going to Australia and interacting with the Yowie, camping solo in a tiger preserve, and recording the only known vocalization of an orang pendek. All of these things are highlights. I think any one person would be lucky to have one of those experiences. And for some reason, I've been blessed with that many. I can't possibly just name one. I can say Finding Bigfoot will be probably the most treasured period of my life. I met my wife there. I got married this past June. I met her on my show. And that was the best thing that Finding Bigfoot could have ever given me, was Melissa. No, I've been, the one story people ask me, were you ever afraid? And yeah, they've been around, there's a knock and a howl over there. But whenever I get really concerned and get kind of creeped out, because I go Bigfooting alone kind of a lot. It's my preferred way to go. When they're around and I'm not there alone, I'm usually okay with it. But every once in a while I get a little spooked, right? Go to bed. That's my answer to it. Go to bed. Because a couple reasons. Number one, that shows them that I'm still here, they know exactly where I am. Here's the secret to Bigfoot in one sentence. You must become a predictable feature in their environment. And what's more predictable than some dude with a tent, right? That gives them free reign to do whatever they want. They want to come in and play with the tent, they can. They want to walk through my camp and go through my food stuff that I leave out for them, absolutely. They want to scream at me, great, bring it on. Because I am prepared when I go to bed. I put game cameras in the middle of my camp amongst all my other gear that I leave out, so it's indistinguishable from all the other human things in my camp, facing outwards. They are welcome to come. And so far, I've failed every single time. I've only spoken to one person that I have complete faith in that claims they've seen a dog man, okay? And it was walking by Peterlee.
Yeah,
But I've spoken to dozens and dozens of witnesses that saw Sasquatches on all fours. Yeah, so that does in fact happen. Because remember how smart we give credit for Sasquatches being, or to Sasquatches for being, right? Do they know they're really visible if they're this high? Of course they do. So they go down. But look at the Mike Green footage, the thermal footage from North Carolina, which is a very telling and instructional video for all of us. See, because here's the problem with Bigfooters. Well, I've got so many problems with Bigfooters, but one of my many problems with Bigfooters, including myself, is that we all want to be Roger Patterson. We all want to be the guy or gal holding the camera and watching it through the viewfinder, even though you get a much worse view. I mean, Gimlin had a better view of the thing, you know. But anyway, we all want to be that person. Mike Green got his footage because he removed himself from that situation. Mike, here, if you don't know the Mike Green story, North Carolina, he saw Sasquatch there the year before. He's been camping in this one campsite at this one campground, pretty much 2 or 3 or 4 weekends a month. He'd show up on Friday, leave Sunday, do the same thing all the time. He was trying to habituate them, right? He was doing the same thing. He was becoming a predictable feature in their environment, right? So, and he heard something down there. Oh, and he had this one stump that he had, the gifting stump or whatever. He'd go put things on it, food or little rubber ducky things, and sometimes it'd be gone, sometimes it wouldn't, sometimes he'd find it later, sometimes he'd never find it at all, that kind of stuff. This one time, he heard something down in the ravine. He went and put a candy bar on the stump, and he went back to the rig, right? And he was setting up his thermal camera back here at the rig, and he's saying, well, what am I gonna do with this? And he realized, he's hearing this thing, he doesn't know if it's a Bigfoot, you never do. You know, because big things sound little in the woods, and vice versa, little things sound big. But what he did, he trained the thermal imager on the stump, he got in his car and drove away. Drove about a mile down the road and played solitaire on his phone for the next couple hours. When he got back, candy bar was gone, he went home, checked the footage, Sasquatch. He removed himself from that situation, right? That's important, I think. It's an important lesson for all of us. And I totally forgot what I was trying to answer for you. But I thought it'd be fun to say it like that, like I did answer it.
You forgot what I asked. Oh yeah, dog man.
Dog man, thank you. So here, okay, I'm on my second marriage. This one's gonna stick, but I'm on my second marriage. My first wife went Bigfooting with me and stuff until we ran into one that scared the hell out of her and she didn't do it again. But anyway, lovely woman, I'm still in contact with her. I married her for a reason, she's great. But anyway, Monica was her name. Monica's cousin, he told me a story about going home in Virginia when he was still in college. I was married to Monica at the time, so his family told me this. And going in and out of fog banks in western Virginia, not West Virginia, western Virginia in the mountains, bringing his girlfriend home at like 2:30 in the morning. Fog banks going real slow, dangerous driving. He comes out of the fog bank and up ahead of him, there's a figure walking in the middle of the road. You know, and he's getting closer to this cliff. The first thing I saw was like the gnarled muscles in his back. It looked like an oak tree root system is what he told me. And it was walking with this sort of like rolling thing going. He got closer, he saw a tail. And he goes, what? And he's like going up and the girlfriend's asleep. And he goes up next to it and kind of cruises up next to it and like, and from me to him, the thing goes, looks right at him. Well, this guy, he screams and splits, wakes up his girlfriend, panics. But there we go, family member no reason to lie to me, and of such high security clearance he can't even use his real name. Telling me he saw a dog man from 2.5 feet. Now don't get me wrong, I do not want dog men to be real. They scare the hell out of me, you know? I do not want that reality to exist in my reality. What am I gonna do? I think Sasquatch is going all fours though. I don't think dogmen do as much, but I don't know anything about those things because I don't want to study them. You know? I don't want to hold them in my mind. I gotta deal with giant ape men. Let's see what time it is. 3 minutes, one more question. Anything at all. Rubik's Cube Master.
What's the closest you've ever been to having a Class A sighting?
I've only seen a Sasquatch once, so what I believe was a Sasquatch once, and it was not a Class A sighting, it was Class B. There really was something on the hill. And what ended up in the footage of that episode was Matt on the hill, and they circled Matt. And they pretended Matt was the Bigfoot, because during the first season, the production company, not Animal Planet, but the production company felt okay about deceitful editing, I feel. There was that episode, there was when Bobo and Matt saw the horse in Florida that they made it seem like Bobo and Matt saw Bigfoot, because that production company had done other shows before, like the ironically named Destination Truth, and they assumed that this show would be the same. Like whoever's on TV would be happy to be on TV and pretend that we saw things that we didn't. But they made a mistake. They hired real Bigfooters. That's a huge mistake. You can make much better television with like actors like Mountain Monsters or something like that. And that's a great TV show, it's fun. It's not real, but it's fun. Unfortunately, they hired us, so they were stuck with us. And when we found out they edited us deceitfully, you know, like, they were kind of pulling one. I just went on my blog and said, no, that was a horse. Like, no. I remember Wool Heater actually called me. He says, Cliff, what was up with that? What did Matt and Bobo see? And like right after the Florida episode, you texted me or called me or something right that same night. And I just said, no, that's a horse, man. So I went on, no, Matt and Bobo did not see a Bigfoot, that was a horse. And then the emails started, and the attacks online started, and the slandering, and the rudeness, and all this other stuff. And I said, no, man, it was a horse. I'm telling you the truth. Like, don't attack me for telling you the truth. And Bobo goes, like he's on his Facebook, whatever, dude, if you don't like it, here's the email for the CEO of Discovery. Well, it didn't take very many emails passing his desk for him to go, what? Excuse me, Animal Planet, what? And then Animal Planet goes, production company, what? And the production company's, guys, aren't you gonna play ball? And we go, no, you hired real Bigfooters, too bad. And then they flew the network executives out from New York to calm the weird Bigfoot people down. And I remember standing, they found us, well, they came to us while we're filming the first Oregon episode with the fly fishing video thing in there. And we were at some cabin out in the middle of nowhere. The owners of the production company, Keith Hoffman from Animal Planet, and a few other like suits from New York and stuff. And I remember just standing up yelling at them. You can't make me lie. The Sasquatches deserve more than this. They deserve our respect. And you know, your stupid show's gonna go away in 3 years, even if we're successful, and I'm gonna be Bigfoot the rest of my life. It's not worth it. And they're going like, who's trying to make you lie? He said, nope. So anyway, because of that turmoil on the show, we got a couple concessions out of them. That's where the camping segment of the show started. Because it's really hard to find Bigfoots with 2 or 3 camera guys and a producer and a sound guy walking around camping. We went out with one guy in a handheld camcorder. It's the best we can do, right? That's also where we made the rule. Anyone caught trying to hoax us on staff, on crew, fired that day, plane ticket the next day, never worked for our show again. We lost 3 producers over the years. Yeah. It was all that first time. I mean, after the second season, when they brought people on the show, they said, number 1, these guys are weird. Number 2, do not hoax. If you hoax, you are fired. And never happened again. Never happened again. So we won, only because you guys did. We all won because you were watching the show. That's what did it. Because truth does win out. Honesty is worth something. you know, and we all pulled together. You guys watched the show because you thought we were being honest, and we were. And I'm proud to say at this point, many, I won't even say all, the camera guys, the sound guy, you name it, they've all worked on the ghost shows. They've all worked on this paranormal show or that show or something like that. And they all walk away saying, you guys care more than I've ever seen, and I've never worked on a more real reality show than Finding Bigfoot. So at the end of the day, that's something to be proud of, I think. I don't know what's next, but should I say goodnight, Harriet?
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed some of Cliff, some of the audio from Cliff that he shared with us tonight, and there's still a lot to look forward to for tomorrow. It's a 2-day event, so what's on board for tomorrow?
Tomorrow we get to see a movie. It's the premiere of The Legend of Bigfoot by Bob Gimlin, and it looks like what it is a documentary type movie about the days and the event of the Pine Bluff sighting, or Bluff Creek, I guess it's called.
Yeah.
Down in California. And, the most famous Bigfoot film of all time. So just kind of the story behind that film, which should be a lot of fun.
Probably the most clear footage, too.
I've seen that, and granted, I saw it, originally. I mean, and you showed me this show, Pat. You reminded me of, I forget the name of it now, but it was hosted by Leonard Nimoy. Was it?
In Search Of.
In Search Of. And they showed the Patterson Gimlin footage, and especially now that they were able to kind of clean up a lot of those visual artifacts and kind of take some of the shakiness out and all that, seeing that footage again, it's so hard. Like, it looks like an animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does not look like a person in a suit at all.
And
like
for so many people, their first view of a Bigfoot, that's what it was.
Yeah.
The Gimlin film. Back in the 70s, I mean, that brought the world of Bigfoot to a lot of people, that episode of In Search Of.
Oh, man. I'm excited. And I like a good documentary, too. So.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
It's going to be great. I'm amped.
Oh, man.
Same.
Yeah, world premiere of an awesome documentary, more panels, more discussion.
Yeah.
I guess we better get some rest.
Yeah, probably.
More squatchiness.
Getting a dream about Bigfoot tonight.
Hey, everybody. We want to thank you for listening. Be sure you check out a lot of our photos from this event are on Facebook. We're on Twitter, and we are now on Instagram.
Well done.
Yay,
all of
job,
them,
Dad.
just Paranormal Dads. Do a search for that, and you'll find us. You can also hear any sound effects we used. We kind of cut back on the sound effects a little bit this episode, but sound effects are from freesound.com.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Keep it squatchy.
Keep it squatchy. Yeah.
I'm going to lay down some sweet dulcet tones for you guys now.
A dulcet?
Paranormal dads. That is what we are. Nowhere in between. Why could we be wrong? Sail away with Pat and Eddie to another world. And we'll rely on Psychic Andy. From one paranormal dad to another. Or are we really hot?